process of life, besides death, there are other certainties. It's not that everything is uncertain. There are things which are certain if you investigate and inquire more deeply into it, which if you come to those recognitions, it will also change your perspective about how you approach life. You'll have a much more practical and realistic understanding. What other uncertainties are there? Pain, pleasure, desire, right? That is part of the same stream of change. So recognizing that also, one raises the question, given that your mind is always fluctuating between these dualities, pain and pleasure, right? This is a constant dualism that's happening all the time between pleasant and unpleasant sensations. Given this fact, how are you going to live the rest of your life? Anytime you become blinded and intoxicated by pleasant experience, you will be a slave. Similarly, if you drift to the other extreme, every unpleasant sensation that arises within you, and you're becoming intoxicated by it, then too you will become a slave. For that reason, yogic sciences were just very practical in speaking of non-attachment. Only through non-attachment can there come an enduring sense of freedom and well-being. And non-attachment is one of those words which is a very vague blanket statement. Non-attachment. I really don't like words like this. Like, for example, another word which I think is a vague blanket statement is compassion. Although when I say compassion, you understand what I mean. When I say non-attachment, you also understand what I mean. But there's so much that's left unsaid that when we say compassion, for example, there are many depths and degrees of compassion. Similarly, there's many different depths and degrees of what we're calling non-attachment. Some people are willing to negotiate only to a certain point. If you suggest to them, drop your attachment to money, drop your attachment to wealth, drop your attachment to relationship, they may be willing to negotiate. But generally, beyond a certain point, then they start to become hesitant. Because total non-attachment is complete renunciation. Complete renunciation. There's not even a trace of hope in your mind that any of these things that you've given generally great importance to is going to lead you to this enduring well-being. And this is a renunciation which is not a renunciation of the world, not a renunciation of pleasure. You know, the kind of enjoyment that happens out of your own liberation is a sort of non-selective enjoyment. This is not something that makes you dry and stale like a corpse. On the contrary, it makes you highly sensitive, receptive to life in the moment. But the only one ingredient that is subtracted is this one ingredient that is to be renounced. So that's why I say, what is that ingredient? It's not the world that needs to be renounced. It's not enjoyment of the pleasure of the senses or wealth or relationship or any of these number of things, which generally in many traditions in the East, they've given great importance to renouncing all of that. But the real, true renunciation is renunciation of your own ignorance and egotism. Once that has been renounced, then you're totally free to throw yourself, indulge in the process of life, and you will not turn yourself into a slave in the process. So it's a certain delicate balance between involvement, yet without becoming drunk and intoxicated in involvement.